Are wild discus harder to keep than domestic strains? Well, the answer is definitely not. This is obviously one of the bigger myths that we hear in the hobbies, and if you buy wild discus, you'll have way more challenges than if you have domestic strains. Well, I'll focus on a number of things that you would likely to hear when dealing with wild discus. First of all is water parameters. Do they need lower pH than domestic strains? The answer, it depends. Well, first of all, we have to keep in mind that there are three different species of wild discus. First is Haeckel's discus, Symphysedon discus in Latin. Second is brown discus, is Symphysedon haraldi in Latin, and this is the most widespread type of wild discus. You would get different varieties. They call it blue discus, royal discus, lots of different other names depending on importers. The third species is green discus, Symphysedon aeugifasciata, and they all have slightly different requirements when it comes to water parameters. Obviously, Haeckel's discus requires the softer and acidic water when compared to other species, and basically anything between 5.5 and 6.5 pH should work great for Haeckel's discus, and clearly, as long as you can provide soft and acidic water, you can think about buying Haeckel's discus. But again, when we talk about soft water, this is pretty much the same for some of the tank-bred discus strains, particularly when it comes to Asian farm-bred discus, which mostly come from Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and so on. They've been bred in really soft and acidic water, so they would require pretty much the same parameters as Haeckel's discus, and this is something that we need to keep in mind when either keeping Asian bred discus or Haeckel's discus, pretty much the same water parameters. When it comes to brown discus and green discus, well, they're certainly more adaptable when it comes to pH. They would require something in the range of 5.6, preferably something not higher than 6.8 pH, and essentially this is what we would aim for when we keep other types of non-Asian types of domestic strains, such as Stenker's discus or discus from some other European breeders. They would require a very similar relatively neutral pH, pretty much similar to green or brown discus wild types. Well, the other thing that we have to keep in mind is food. Sometimes you would hear that wild discus are really hard to get used to non-live foods. This is not true, actually. In the wild, in the nature, discus are quite used to a broad variety of foods. They would eat plant matter, they would eat detritus, they would eat different types of insects, fruits, crustaceans, depending on season. So in captivity, wild discus are much easier to get adapted to different types of foods than domestic strains. When it comes to domestic strains, particularly if we talk about the farm-bred types of domestic discus, such as Stenker's discus or some of the Asian farm-bred discus, they're used to one type of food, and this is usually beef heart mix, and you can wean them onto other types of food, but it is going to take you some time. It might take you several weeks, it might take you several months, depending on how successful you are. Well, you might achieve much better results with wild discus because they're way more adaptable to different types of food, and it would definitely take you some time to get them used to dry foods. That's true, unless your importer has already got them used to dry foods before you bought them. But in any case, in my own experience, it takes less than a week for wild discus to get used to frozen foods, to get used to beef heart mix, and to accept all types of dry foods, which would otherwise other tropical fish would eat as well. So there shouldn't be much challenges in terms of food when we talk about wild discus. Water changes. One of the bigger things that you would often hear about wild discus is that they need very frequent water changes, preferably once per day. Well, you would definitely need to change them water quite frequently, but not necessarily once per day. It depends, well, pretty much as with domestic strains, it depends on a number of factors. First of all, your stocking. If your tank is overstocked, you have to make lots of water changes. It doesn't matter whether you have wild discus or domestic discus, it's pretty much the same. The other thing is your filtration. If you have really strong biological filtration, obviously you can take it easy on water changes, and again, it should be taken in consideration together with stocking factor. Yes, it also depends on how large is your tank. So if you have a really large tank, obviously you don't need to change as much as if you have smaller tank. In terms of wild types of discus, probably not more forgivable to water quality as compared to domestic strains, but nevertheless they do not require more water changes than domestic strains. Weekly or bi-weekly water changes should work fine as long as you have strong filtration, as long as you're not overstocked, and as long as you have a proper size tank. Well, these are some of the key challenges that you would like to encounter, that you would most likely encounter when you're dealing with wild discus, and there's clearly lots of other issues that we will be talking about in later videos, but these are some of the key challenges that I wanted to cover in this video. So if you liked the video, do click that subscribe button down there, and there will be more similar videos to come in the near future.